hey, we're all in this together. We all want high growth. How do we drive that? How do we buck the system of you go to whatever meeting and they're giving you tricks and tips on how to get to 10% growth instead of 5% growth? Inflation this year is 12%. So if you're growing at less than 12%, you're losing, man.
What are some tips that you would say is the most effective that you've used recently within your agency?
Whether it goes right or whether it goes wrong, it's my fault.
Did you read a certain book that inspired that?
I started listening to an Entre Leadership podcast that talked about that quite a bit. As I started bringing on staff, I just started getting more into leadership. It's easy to squeak out of, right? And I think it's that high ego we were talking about earlier that helps us kind of squeak out of who's responsible for the training for that task, right? So whether it goes right or whether it goes wrong, it's my fault.
Yeah. One of the books that I read was the Extreme Ownership. It's so true though. Like what it did for me in the thought process is be able to take ownership of everything, and then it empowers you and gives less power to everything else.
I think the other thing that's been a really big advantage to me is getting in a group of like-minded agents. The reality 100%. Is on the independent side, the average agency grows at 5%. I didn't look at the best practice study recently. Maybe it's 10%. Someone could call or listen to this podcast and say, no, it's 10.
I think it's less on the captive side.
Either way, I would argue that's embarrassingly low. Inflation this year is 12%. So if you're growing at less than 12%, you're losing, man. And so getting in a group of, the teledudes, obviously, getting in a group of like-minded agents who, is it always about the system and the dials and the quotes and the leads? No, the conversations aren't always about that. Now, that's a bulk of it. That's what we talk about. But really, it's, hey, we're all in this together. We all want high growth. How do we drive that? How do we buck the system of, yes, you go to whatever meeting, carrier meeting, or you go to national convention and they're giving you tricks and tips on how to get to 10% growth instead of 5% growth. And it's like, ooh, right?
Yeah.
So like being in a group of like, hey, let's filter that crap out. When we're actually going to have a growth meeting, we're talking about 20, 30, 40% growth year over year.
Mindset is so important because if you believe you can't, you won't. If you believe you can, you will. And there's no better support system or detractor system. If you're around the peers who are all complacent and or growing at 5%, you're likely going to do the same. If you're around the people that are growing at 30%, you're going to figure out how to grow at 30%. Because you don't want to be the one that's at the back of the herd. I mean, that's also part of the reason we built everything was, hey, I want other people around that want to grow because they're going to push us, right? And that's why it's so important to take responsibility, because guess what? That puts the onus on us. No matter what, it's our fault. We assume that responsibility. The fire is always under our feet. We're going to take action so that we can get results.
I agree. And I would tie it back into another answer to the question that Jason asked of, hey, what's something that's really benefited your agency? When you're around all the people that are growing at 5 or 10%, they're telling you of all the reasons why that's the absolute maximum growth that they can achieve. But one way that I've tried to really pivot within the last few months, don't ask, can it be done? Ask, how do I do this? So one of the big things is like, how do we tweak this process to fit? How do we do that? And instead of saying it can't be done, when you say, how can it be done? You have a few sleepless nights for about a week, but you'll figure it out.
Yep. Incredible what our brains come up with, even when we're sleeping. If we're on a problem and we've decided that we're going to take ownership of this problem, like how can we solve it, then you usually can come up with a pretty unique way. Somebody said that, something about like the difference between the way like millionaires and normal people think, normal people. The difference is they think I can't do something, where the millionaire thinks, how do I make this happen? It's the exact same thing.
I was just saying, there's a million reasons why electric cars don't work until Elon has a car that works. Then all of a sudden Ford and GM are, oh crap, we can figure this out too. Give us a few years to catch up. Private space flight doesn't work. Internet that comes through the satellite, that's never viable. Well, here it is.
Wait, listen up. We have something that is incredibly special coming up. We have an event called Elite Agencies Ignite, where top agents from all over the country are going to be speaking and going to be in the audience May 18th, 19th, and 20th, the Kona Kai Hotel in San Diego. Now, there's limited seating, but you're going to have to try to make it down. Why? Because this event is a 3-day immersion event to help you take a quantum leap in your agency.
It's a great opportunity to get in the room with 10 other like-minded individuals that want to grow.
I would recommend anybody to come here just because no one is riding as much business these guys are.
Highly recommended.
We just need to get everybody together. Why? Because when you do a mastermind like this and you bring this type of talent together, you can have an incredible incredible impact. This is going to be one of those events that you're going to look back, and if you don't go, you're going to be so bummed. So come on out. Kona Kai Hotel, May 18th, 19th, and 20th. We'd love to see you there.